Excuse me. Thank you. Oh, here.
Again, I see your message in there and make sure everyone's microphones are muted, but I can hear someone. Do you guys hear someone? I can't figure out who it is.
I heard someone as well. That's why I was saying that.
Hey, Tammy, I went in and I muted them.
All right,
Thank you, Bree.
for everyone that's in here that's coming in, we'll start promptly at 10. Thanks for getting on early, everybody.
I'll let that come in.
Morning, everybody. It is 10, but I see the numbers continue to go up. So I'm going to give it maybe 2 or 3 more minutes until we start, just so I'm not starting in the middle of something and then people think they've missed. We'll start maybe around 10:03. Okay, good morning, everybody. Folks are still rolling in, but I think we'll get the party started here. I know a lot of you, I see many familiar names, but I see some new ones, so this will be good to sort of meet all of you today. My name is Megan Hennigan. I'm Deputy Director of Education here at Colig. I'm one of the attorneys of the day, and I'm joined by the entire education unit today. You'll see all of them on video at some point. We have Brianna Neal and Tammy Cannon and Michael Smith, our training associates, and my partner in crime, Marlena Diaz, who's also a Deputy Director of Learning Innovation Administration in the Education Unit. We are all here today to talk about the responsibilities of the ethics officer. We did this forum, gosh, I've been here a long time. 8 years as of last week. We did this forum probably 6 or 7 years ago. Lots of things have changed, as you all know. Some of you may be new to this. Some of you maybe have been doing this for many years. It's always good to have a refresher and to talk through issues and have us all get together. I will say, I think probably the best thing regarding questions today is put them in the chat if we have time. Maybe we can unmute some of you, but we'll be saving the chat log. And so if we don't get to all the questions, hopefully we can do a document to send around later if we don't get to everything. I have a sneaking suspicion that a lot of questions are going to be about the online application where we put all the training records. So we have a section regarding that, and we can take some time at the end also to take those questions. So let's dive right in. We're going to do a poll at the beginning because there's 84 of you, so almost 90 of you on today. We want to know who is new to this as an ethics officer or agency user. We want to find out what population of folks we have here today. So we just opened the poll. Hopefully all of you as ethics officers or agency contacts know where the polling function is in the WebEx. So get on in there and we'll give you a few minutes to answer it, and we'll see who's in here today.
And just in case the answers are cut off for you on your screen, if you're on a single screen or something like that, the question is, are you a new ethics officer or agency user? And the answers are no, I've been doing this for a while. B, yes, I'm a new ethics officer, or C, I am a new agency user.
That was Michael Smith. Thank you. I've only had one cup of coffee, so we're all helping each other this morning. So if you've just joined us, I hear some folks coming in. I see the numbers rising. We opened a poll. We want to know, are you a new ethics officer, agency contact? And so make sure you get in the poll and answer that. You have about 3 minutes. If I see that everyone's almost done, we could probably shut down the poll early, but I see people are still answering, so that's good. 11 of you have not started. Get in there and do it.
For though, I just got some private messages that stated that some people are missing the poll, and that's one thing I can quickly review for you guys. If you are missing the polling panel, in the far right-hand corner of your screen, in the far right-hand corner of your screen, there are 3 little dots. Those are your ellipsis. If you hover over that, it will provide you with panel options, and you can click on the polling panel, and it should pop up for you.
That was Tammy. There's only about 8 of you who have not yet started. You know, I think well, you know what, we could probably close the poll. Because most of you, only 8 folks out of 91 didn't get in there.
Well, and 5 of those are us, Megan.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
So only 3 people.
Yeah.
Oh, and, well, actually, that might have been everybody because we have some of our attorneys on there. So
That's
there
true
we
as
go.
well.
That's true. So about half of the crew here today have been doing this for a while, but we have 14 of you, so 16% who are brand new. That's a pretty big number. I'm hoping that this will be really helpful for you today. And 16 of you, about 20% of you are new agency users. So that's a pretty big percentage of you, 35 or so percent. And so here we are. Let's get into the substance of it. So these are really just a lot of all the topics we're going to cover today regarding the responsibilities of the ethics officer. We'll talk a lot about training, outside activity review and approval, financial disclosure, honorarium and official activity expense payments, gifts, widely attended events, all those good things. We will get in deep about the role of the ethics officer and then also the agency contacts who help the ethics officers. And most of you are a lot of you are attorneys. We see folks that are in HR as well as other compliance staff. And your responsibilities include, in part, these things. And we're going to get into these areas in a lot more depth throughout the presentation today. We'll get into financial disclosure, how you're going to inform your employees and our agency on a yearly basis about who they are in your agency. And then advice and guidance. You all are often your employees and your board members' first stop when they have an ethics question. And you all are the ones who know your own agency's policies regarding ethics that can often be stricter. a really important function is communicating information regarding the ethics laws to them. We send out newsletters and other communications every once in a while. And so it might be a good idea, if you don't do this already, to send those to your employees. And then we will, of course, get into the mandated training requirement that changed in that changed all of our lives about 2.5 years ago. So we will talk about that as well. Now, well, let's see, 30 of you or so are brand new to this, and you're thinking, I haven't been told anything about what I should be doing as an ethics officer and agency contact. Well, we're here to help, and half of our questions as attorneys of the day are from ethics officers who themselves might need guidance. It's myself, and I think almost all of the lawyers who are on the rotation are here today. If they want to very quickly turn on their videos, we have Erin Lynch and Megan Fleming. Let's see who else is here. I believe Teresa Wells and possibly Lisa Levy. Is Lisa here? If they've all turned on their video, give a little wave. These are all, and including myself, we are the attorneys of the day. We're on the phones and receive emails every business day. So if you have questions, don't forget that we're here, and we are here to help you and guide you and help you figure out the actual meat of the law if you're not sure what exactly you're supposed to be telling your employees and your board members yet. And I believe that we're going to turn it over now to Marlena and Brianna. Who's taking it first?
I'll take it.
All
Hi,
right.
everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Marlena Diaz. I'm one of the deputy directors here at COLEG. I work in the training unit, as well as managing all the ins and outs of our statewide ethics training application. I'll be talking to you today about the ethics training requirement. So let's get started. We wanted to actually start off our section of ethics training talking about, why do I have to take this training? Interestingly enough, even though the training requirement has been around since July of 2022, we at COLEG, our training team, we consistently see the same questions appear in our chat inboxes when we're delivering live trainings, as well as in our evaluations following the trainings, with many of our employees asking us, why do I have to take this training? Like, none of this really applies to me. In addition to that, we consistently also hear things like, but I'm just a professor, or, you know, I'm just a janitor, or I'm just this, or I'm just that. You know, first and foremost, I think we need to remind folks that first and foremost, we're all state employees, right? And then we're our title. And I think it's really important that we continue by the end of our 2024 calendar year here, and also into 2025, that we work together, you know, our ethics officers, our training compliance officers, our agency contacts, and here our staff here at, at training, we have a great communications team. We have, a great training team here that we continue to build upon that partnership and reminding all state employees, whether you're a professor or you're a student assistant or you're part of, administrative staff or you're heads of an agency, that we are in fact all state employees, right? And all of the ethics laws apply to us in some form or fashion. So it's really important that for the 2025 calendar year, we build upon that communication message, because we would love to see the number of folks attending our training. We'd love to see that question minimized, right, as to why they need to take training. And the answer is pretty simple, right? The majority of us, we all sign that oath of office, and it's important for all of us to have a general awareness of those ethics laws. So what are the training requirements? Many of you all know what they are. They're outlined in Executive Law 94. First of all, you have the live CETC, right? The foundation behind our ethics training course. Now, all state officers and employees must attend live training every 2 years. Now, the big exception to that, obviously, is the new hires. And for some of you, when I've had my outreach calls with you folks, this is brand new information. So if this is brand new to you, you can always reach out to me later on after the training. We can set up an outreach call if need be. But the most important takeaway here is that new hires within 90 days of appointment need to take a live CETC, okay? So your brand new hires, they cannot take an online on-demand training in order to satisfy that requirement. It has to be a live 2-hour CETC course. Now, it doesn't mean that that course has to be in person, okay? That means that they can do it live the same way that we're doing it right now, that we're doing it using some type of video conferencing technology. Really what we're looking for with regards to the new hires is making sure they take live training within those 90 days and they're able to ask questions. And most importantly, they know who to go to if they have specific questions on the policies within your agencies, right? So that's your ethics officer, and that's us. Now the online refresher. So on year 1, if you take the live CETC, the following year you can take our online training. For those of you who have already taken it, I think at last count, there was over 62,000 employees statewide that have taken our online training available in SLMS, the Statewide Learning Management System. I know that there's some of you that also utilize some of our files that we made available in our SharePoint site. So for those of you who also have a learning management system, I understand that a lot of you have also taken it that way as well. So to recap, you must take ethics training every single year. It's an every year requirement. It's some form of ethics training every single year by December 31st of every calendar year. So it's either going to be live training or online training, depending on your training cycle, okay? And if you need more clarification on that, once again, reach out to me. I can show you what it looks like in SETA in our training application as well. Our comprehensive ethics training course materials. Now, for those of you who are interested in delivering our live CETC, we do have an abundance of materials available on our CoLake SharePoint site. For those of you who do not have access to our SharePoint site and would like access to SharePoint, please send us an email to that CoLake Education shared inbox, and a member of our team will reach out to you and provide you with access. We are looking to build upon our existing courses and availability for our 2025 calendar year. Right now, we do have a SUNY CUNY Campus Edition. We're actively working on a CETC edition specifically for our third shift employees, and we have a couple of other editions available for you in that SharePoint site. Now, if you're interested in collaborating with us and creating a customized CETC related to a cohort of your employees, reach out to us. We'd love to be able to sit down, do some collaboration, and have another version of the CETC available for our state employees. So what does the Commission consider live with respect to training? And here I'm focusing on the CETC, okay, that comprehensive ethics training course, all right? So live means presented by an instructor in real time, similar to what's happening right here, allowing for participants to see the presentation materials and to ask questions in real time. This can happen either in an in-person training or it can happen similar to how we're doing it right now by using some type of video conferencing equipment. What's really important is that there's two-way communication between you and your state employees. Acceptable forms of delivery are live webinars, video conferencing, as I mentioned, and a traditional classroom setting. So for those attending in live remote formats, such as WebEx or Zoom, ethics officers must have a means to verify actual attendance of participants. This is really important here. Can I change the CETC materials? Now, presenters may not delete content from the slides. The only exception to this bullet here is if you know that you're delivering a training, okay, a live training, and you know that you have no FDS filers sitting in your audience, whether online or in person, you can skip that. But everything else you need to cover, whether that's conflict of interest, whether that's honoraria, outside activities, gifts especially, post-employment most importantly, outside activities, all of that needs to be covered, okay? You can tailor it in order to be able to customize it to your specific agency policies. We have a lot of folks with regards to gifts is a great example, right? So instead of saying, well, you can't take a gift, nominal value, $15 and all that, you can say we have a zero gift policy. Okay, you can insert your own policy and you can outline that in detail and elaborate that within your own individual live CETCs. Okay, hopefully that makes sense to everyone. So what is the criteria that we use when we issue credit here at Coleg for anyone that takes a live CETC session with us? So these are our standards. We hope that you're able to adopt some of them when you're delivering the live CETC for your employees. So participants must, okay, we're talking here about WebEx now, okay, and this is critical. We really would appreciate it too. When you have your employees sign up to take training with us, that you also communicate some of these messages to them, okay? So they need to, when they're enrolled in WebEx, we use their entire first and last name as a way to issue credit, okay? Because we will export the WebEx attendance report, and we're looking to match that first name and last name from our enrollment roster to that WebEx attendance report. So it's critical in order for your employees to receive credit for attending one of our trainings that they understand that when they log into WebEx, they need to change that display name to match their name, the name that they use to enroll in our self-enrollment portal. Those names have to be the same, okay? We consistently have to remind folks in all of our trainings to change their display name. It's the only way that we know that Marlena Diaz on the WebEx is Marlena Diaz in the enrollment, okay? It's critical for us in order to be able to give employees credit for attending that 2-hour class. Now, employees have to attend the full session, okay? It's okay if they miss a little bit of our housekeeping, but the minute we start, other than having any technical difficulties, and we all know that from time to time, all of us are subject to some technical difficulties when it comes to WebEx or using remote technologies. We understand those situations happen. But the minute we start talking about conflict of interest, so the minute we get done with housekeeping, we need attendance, okay, from that point on until the end of our program, okay? We're looking to see how long folks are logged in when it comes to taking our training, okay? If you're logged in for 20 minutes, you're not getting credit from us, all right? And we also ask that employees demonstrate participation and engagement by answering our poll questions that we have, similar to what we just did a few minutes ago, and utilizing our chat features, okay? We wanna make sure that folks are engaged, they're able to ask us questions, we're able to respond to those questions, and that we want to make sure they're paying attention by, participating in our polls. All right, so now we're going to transition away from the live CETC to the online refresher course. As I mentioned before, our Coleg on-demand ethics training satisfies that online refresher course in Executive Law 94. It's available for the majority of the workforce on the statewide learning management system. It's also available, as I mentioned before, on our SharePoint site under SCORM or HTML files. We do have an accessible version available on our SharePoint. You need to be able to utilize Microsoft Stream because that's the platform that we were able to utilize it. We are working on increasing our accessible versions, and we are actively working on creating an online ethics refresher that's outside of the SLMS environment, okay? So we are actively working with vendors and figuring out a solution for that. But just as a caveat, right, we would only be making that version available to only employees that are not able to utilize SLMS, so they're outside of that SLMS learning environment, and to those employees whose primary agency does not have their own learning management system, okay? Because we understand that for some of you who try to upload our SCORM or our HTML files, you know, if we have an issue where you're seeing a pop-up where you shouldn't see them, or your LMS isn't completely compatible with the file that we have, and we utilize Lectora in order to create those files, then there's not too much we can do on our side to kind of troubleshoot that. Just to give everybody some awareness on that, we have an online subscription to Lectora. I go in there, I create the training, and then I have options as to how I can export the training, okay? And then I create those files, and I make those files available in our SharePoint site. Now, if there's not a 100% match between what Lectora exports in your learning management system, I have very few options in being able to kind of mitigate those issues, FYI. So because of that, and because we all want to make sure that everyone can have access to an online training program, we're really working hard with our vendors to figure out a solution where we can make an online version hosted probably on a website, and only, again, make that available to folks who are outside of the SLMS learning environment as well. Oh, and I just want to circle back here for 1 second. An important point here that I missed. So for those of you who want your employees to take live training with us, for any one of your employees who have any accessibility requirements, right? Like they need a CART captionist as an example. They need an American Sign Language interpreter as a different example. We're gonna need at least, I wanna say, a 2 to 3 week lead time in that, okay? Because we need to be able to secure those resources outside of our agency and make sure that we coordinate that with that provider and ensuring that that individual has everything that they need to have the best experience when taking our live training. So again, if you have individuals who do not want to use the closed captioning available in WebEx, and instead need an American Sign Language interpreter, or they need another accessibility accommodation, please reach out to us and give us at least a 2-week lead time so that my team here can work on making sure that we have those resources in place and we can make sure that everyone has the best experience possible. All right, so actions required by the ethics officer. Again, this is all about keeping two-way communication and open communication here. So throughout the year, we need you to notify all officers and employees of the mandated yearly ethics training requirement. This is really important. We would love to see less and less questions from our live trainings asking us, why do I need to be here, okay? We also ask, because we're a very small team, to deliver the CETC to your staff at regular intervals or as needed. Of course, employees are welcome to take one of our trainings, but there's only so many sessions that we can honestly hold, and it is coming close to the end of the year. So if you know that you have a lot of employees that need to get trained, we ask you to start getting on the ball now with that, whether it's reaching out to us for assistance or also delivering your own CETCs to make sure that everyone's compliant for the 12/31 deadline, okay? And obviously, as I mentioned, direct those who are unable to take a training at your agency to come to us at Cold Lake for a live training course. We ask you to do 2 things in the application. I'm going to pivot for 1 second and talk about SETA, our statewide ethics training application. So every month you should be doing 2 separate actions, okay? One action is you're going to continue to submit those monthly aggregate reports to us, okay? That's number 1. That has not gone away. We still notice that there's a little bit of miscommunication there. So to clarify to everybody that's on today, every month you need to do 2 things. 1, submit your monthly aggregate stats to us. And number 2, you should be regularly looking every single month. You should be looking at your agency roster in the application in SETA, okay? And I'll talk about that a little bit later on as we go through, but you should be updating those training records, taking a look at that. If you need more help, start identifying folks in your agency that can assist you with that. Send us an email. We'll give those people access. I do outreach and demonstrations all the time. I do them probably 2 to 3 times a week, where somebody's brand new, they've just been given this task. I'll walk you through setup. I'll let you know what to do, how you should do it, and what to avoid, okay? So those are your action items. Continue to tell folks about the yearly training requirement. Deliver the CETC. If you can't do them all yourself, send your people to us. And every month, regularly submit your monthly stats. In addition to that, you should be updating anyone that has taken training from you in the system, okay? And just for awareness, for any employee that takes the on-demand in SLMS, that online ethics training course in SLMS, I upload that information on a monthly basis, okay? I run a query from SLMS and I upload that. If for whatever reason you see that you have confirmation, you have a certificate from an employee who completed that online on-demand course from SLMS and their training record isn't updated and they took it a couple of weeks ago, they took it 2 months ago, reach out to me because I want to make sure that our query has your learning environment attached to it, okay? So I'm not going to get too much in the weeds to that. If you have questions, hit me up offline, okay?
Marlena.
Yes.
Hey, I'm just going to jump in for just a second. Ellen had a really good point that I just, before you moved on, I wanted to say to everyone, if you're not looking at the chat, she asked, should we include employees who took live training directly with us, COLIG, in our monthly statistics? Yes, please.
Yes, please. And I will show you how to do that, okay? So I know some of you are like, how am I supposed to know? I don't receive training completion emails from COLIG. I'll get to that in a minute, but absolutely. I can tell you how you should be looking at that in your agency profile. The manage button is going to be your friend with regards to that. So that's a yes. So in September, we launched our class registration self-enrollment portal. So this portal is attached to SETA, to our statewide ethics training application. And what this does is that allows employees from both agencies who are paid by OSC. So you hear me say that a lot when we're talking about SETA. So we have 2 buckets of employees, right? We have our OSC folks, so anyone who's paid by OSC and who has an N number followed by 8 numeric digits, and we have the outlier folks, okay? So individuals who are not paid by OSC, they either have their own internal employee IDs or they don't, okay? So either group can utilize this portal to enroll in any one of our live CET sessions, okay? It's very simple to use. You just select your agency. I do like to let people know that, let's say you have like a really long name on your agency, commission on so-and-so, so-and-so, so-and-so. What you want to do when you're entering the name in the agency, I always like to say use the main identifier. So if I was looking for COLIG, for Commission on Ethics and Lobbying in Government, I'm either going to type in ethics in that box or I'm going to type in lobbying, okay? So the system can find me a lot quicker. So definitely have your employees use the main identifier, especially for those of you who are part of our SUNY and CUNY campuses. You don't want to start with SUNY, you don't want to start with CUNY, you don't want to start with State University. Have your employees enter their main, identifier, Albany or New Paltz, Geneseo, as an example. So if you see a red asterisk, okay, by the employee ID, that means that your employees conform to the OSC employee ID standards. So in that case, they would have to enter in an employee ID number that begins with an N or a C followed by those numeric digits, okay? So right now, you see there's no asterisk there for the employee ID, so it's not a required field. So for those of you who have been identified as an outlier agency, your employees are not paid by OSC, they can leave that blank, all right? So you just pick your agency, you look at the employee ID, it's gonna let you know, is it required, is it not required, depending on what agency you select. All right, you put in your employee ID, leave that blank if you're an outlier, first name, last name. If you're a doctor, you put that in the suffix, and your email, your work email address, okay? We just ask you to confirm it. Once the individual hits find a training, it will display all of our open training sessions available, okay? Just a point of note, right now we don't have the ability to unenroll folks. So let's say an employee signs up for today's training, they're not able to make it, and they want to enroll for Monday's training, just have them reuse this portal and select the Monday class. And that's how we'll be handling those situations right now, okay? So this is how we're directing all traffic, because we don't have a dedicated admin for our unit, okay? So we really need to be able to minimize here, because at last count, we have over 370,000 employees that are required to take training every year by us. So that number keeps going up and up and up and up. So in order to kind of streamline the administrative process for us here, we are encouraging all employees to self-enroll in a live CETC, okay? All right, we get this question a lot in the inbox, so we wanted to address it here. Certificates of completion, what you need to know. All right, so any employee who attended and successfully completed, so they met our requirements, we were able to match their display name. They answered the polling questions, either using the poll or the chat. They were on the training for the amount of time that we need them to be on. So if they met all those requirements and we issued them credit, okay, so for our first pilot class that we utilized that self-enrollment form was September 9th. So any employee who successfully received credit for attending one of our classes beginning on September 9th and moving forward, they automatically received one of these emails that you see on the screen. This is a system-generated email from our application, and it's sent to the email address of what the employee used in order to enroll. Okay, so let's say the employee has an active profile in SETA, and they they have their work email address there, but they enrolled using their Gmail address. It's getting sent to whatever email address they utilized, okay, to enroll. Now that notice of the certificate of completion is only being sent to the employee, and we've kind of wrestled with this for quite some time. So it makes sense to a degree to CC all of our agency users. That would be ethics officers, training compliance officers in contact. Have those emails also CC to those folks, but it won't make sense long term when it comes to a lot of the agencies that have 2,000, 5,000, 13,000. You know, we've got agencies that've got 30, 70,000 folks. I think we would be told pretty quickly to turn off those, system-generated notifications to our AGUs, agency users. So for that reason, we only right now send that system-generated email to the actual employee that successfully completed training, okay? And as I mentioned, those emails are not sent to the AGUs, the ethics officers, training compliance officers, and agency contacts, okay? Employees that complete training with us should obviously, for record-keeping purposes, hold on to that email and let us, and if you have questions about it, they can always send that to you, but it doesn't look like a traditional certificate of completion, okay? It looks more like a form letter, like it's exactly what you see on our screen right now. It's on our official letterhead, it has the employee name, it lets them know which class they successfully completed, what date and time they successfully completed that class, okay? And I'm not sure if we have any questions on that. Right now, I'm just looking at the chat. Okay, so for Lauren, you want to know when I upload SLMS. So I uploaded SLMS, I want to say 2 nights ago. Generally, I try to aim for between the 15th and 18th of every single month is when I try to upload SLMS data. So I uploaded that information 2 days ago. So if you want to take a look at your agency profile, you can sort your employees by those folks who have ethics refresher next to the class type, and that'll tell you. And you can sort by ascending, descending order, but I'll get to that in a second. So generally, I like to upload between the 15th and 18th of every month, SLMS data. All right, this is a good segue. Checking training completion dates in SETA. So as you heard me say before, every single month you should be doing 2 things, right? Submitting your monthly aggregate stats. That's number 1, every month, that doesn't go away. And number 2 is uploading or marking your employees completed who attended live CETC training with you and marking those folks completed in SETA. I handle the on-demand for SLMS, but you need to handle, because I won't know, right? We're not going to know who attended live training in your organization. So you'll need to be able to update that. So for those of you who need a demo, again, of SETA and how to use your profile, let me know. Hit me up after this training. Email me directly. You don't need to send it to Coleg Education. Just email me directly, and I'll look at my calendar and I'll set up a date and time. I do these all the time. It can take anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes, depending on how many questions you have, but I'm happy to do that. We can take a look specifically at your agency. We can make it tailored to your needs, your wants, what you need done, what you're having issues with. It also gives me great feedback to send back to my ITS team and let them know, hey, folks are having issues with this, or it'd be great if we could do this. And just to remind everyone, you know, the application is still in its infancy, okay? This is not a completely finished application, all right? We're still working really hard on developing a lot more reports, a lot more system-generated email notifications, reports for you folks, for agency users, and things of that nature. All right, so checking completion dates in SETA. So if you're at your dashboard, okay, I know we need a visual right now. I don't have one to give you. And you click the magnifying glass under your My Agencies, you're going to go directly to your agency profile. And here I'm just using one of my test accounts that I created, okay? And at the bottom of your agency profile, you're going to see a button called Manage, and that button's going to be your friend, all right? And you can see that kind of blown up in that other screenshot. So once you look at that, once you click Manage, you're going to see an expanded screen of all of your, you know, agency employees. I personally like to see everything at once, so I normally change that show entries at the bottom to all, but that's my preference. You folks navigate, you know, how you like. So this is generally what I do, is that I will first sort by last name, and you can see that under the number 1. And then I sort by training completed. Okay, and all of these columns sort by ascending and descending order, because I want to know how many folks have been trained, right? And I want to see who's been trained the most recently. So I'll have it so that, let's say, in this case, I want to see who was trained in October and November. I'm going to hit that training completion column so I can sort it that way. And then at that point, I'm going to hit export. You don't need to have a lot of Excel skills to be able to use that. Once you hit export, it's going to automatically download an Excel file for you. And at that point in time, you can make a table and you can filter it out by date, okay? So you can say, so let's say you have to submit a monthly report to us, right? It's that time you have to tell us how many folks did you train, to give you an example, in October. I would sort it by the training completion. I would export it. And then I would just make myself a quick table in Excel. If you don't know how to do it, reach out to me. It takes 2 seconds. I'll show you how to do it. And then I would just filter the results so I can see exactly, or if you have somebody in-house that's an Excel whiz, I need one, send them to me. Utilize them as well. You know, have them give you a 5-second tutorial. It doesn't take that much time. And then you can literally count, you can have it sorted and say, I want to see just the folks that completed CETC, and I want to see just for October, to give you an example. And at the bottom of your screen, it'll give you a count. It'll say you had 50 people complete the CETC for October 2024, and you can utilize that number when you're submitting your monthly stats, okay? Because we're pretty on the ball right now when it comes, even though we don't have a training admin, even though we're trying to outsource some of that, we are pretty on the ball when it comes to entering training completion information for the classes that we deliver here at Coleg, and having that information reflect in SETA, okay? The only caveat to that is if for whatever reason somebody completely put in the wrong information when they enrolled, and we couldn't match that employee up to an existing profile in SETA. In those cases, we normally get an email from the individual a week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks later saying, hey, I didn't receive credit. Hey, my ethics officer is asking about it. Hey, my training director wants to know what happened. And then we can do a little bit of digging and figure out that the person put in the wrong information. And then we can mark that person successfully completed in SETA, okay? Let me see if there's any questions. Yes, so Sloan, is there a way to make a correction, put a date for CETC when they should have put OER? Okay, so let's say, I get this a lot. So let's take a moment. I know Megan is going to want to power through it, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Again, reach out to me, and I can spend all the time in the world explaining this to you outside of today's forum. There is a way to change which class an individual took as long as they're not a new hire. And how do I know that they're a new hire or not? Look at the due date. It has to say 12/31/2024. If it says 12/31/2024, they're an established employee for our purposes, okay? And you can change that class type. Don't go in there and try to do that yourself. Reach out to me. I want to avoid as many data shenanigans in the application as possible. Reach out to me, and I'll talk to you about how to do that, okay? Reach out to me first. Reach out to me first, okay? Email notifications. I get questions about this all of the time. As I mentioned, due dates, 12/31 of every calendar year. Everyone needs to take some form of training, whether it's the live training or the on-demand. So if you took live training this year, you can choose to take online next year. If you took online training this year, the on-demand and SLMS, you have no alternative for next year. You got to get into a live training. So start thinking about your 2025 training calendars now, okay? So for those of you who have not completed training for 2024, right, and it's the end, let's move forward and pretend it's January 2025, and we look in the system, we run our report, and we see, a number of employees as non-compliant or overdue. They haven't taken their training. For any email address that obviously we have in the system, and we encourage you to continue to put those email addresses in SETA, because our commission board, our executive staff, we all interpret administering the training program as outlined in Executive Law 94. We also interpret that to mean, email communications back and forth between us here at COLIG. We're responsible for administering the training program for 370,000 people, and directly also communicating with employees. So it's important that you communicate with your employees that they need to get into training. We're probably going to start those non-compliant, get yourself trained emails at the end of January 2025. And for those of you who may have concerns, this should be no different than what we did in our predecessor agency with regards to FCS filers and their training requirement there. For those individuals who are overdue, not compliant, they received email communications from us as well. It's just a way of keeping everyone informed and making sure that the most number of people in the state comply to the mandated ethics training requirement, okay? So it's nothing to be worried about. But just make sure that you're communicating with your employees early that they need to get into a training, okay? If you're having a hard time, reach out to us. The more of a window we have in order to be able to help prepare you, the better it will be, okay? So, we're quickly running out of time. We've got November, we've got Thanksgiving, we've got the holidays coming up. Reach out to us soon. And your role versus ours. All right, so COLIG, what's our job, right? What are we doing to administer the training program? What's our responsibilities? We monitor statewide training compliance efforts. We offer live training opportunities. We have to report monthly statewide training statistics to our commission board, and we report quarterly and yearly training statistics to the governor and legislature. So that's our responsibility, okay? Agency ethics officers, you heard me say this multiple times. 1, submit your monthly stats. 2, update and monitor training completion information in SETA. Use that manage button. The manage button is your friend. If you want to learn how to import training records into the system, reach out to me. Don't do this on your own. Reach out to me. We've had a couple of folks who have wiped out their agency rosters. because, mistakes happen. We understand that. But to avoid that, reach out to me and I'll help you out, okay? Offer live training opportunities at your agency. We encourage you to continue to offer live training opportunities at your agency because we're a very small unit responsible for 370,000 people. We'd love to train everybody ourselves, but it's just honestly not possible right now. And contact us if you have difficulties training your agency employees. So what are the responsibilities of the employee? Attend yearly ethics training. I know that we all have busy schedules. We all have our own priorities and action items. I know we're asked to pivot all the time when it comes to things of that nature, but it's in the law. It's the yearly requirement, okay? And we try to give you the most flexibility in getting everyone trained by making everyone do every year 12/31 of every calendar year other than the new hires, okay? And obviously, we want your employees to seek advice and guidance. If they're confused, if they're unsure about things, reach out to you, your ethics officer, reach out to us. We want folks to be comfortable to say, hey, I was offered something, I want to do something, can I accept this, can I go here, can I fly here, reach out to us, okay? We have, great staff on our team that provide advice and guidance all of the time via email, over the phone. If you yourself as an ethics officer or a training director have a common question come up and you're unsure of, reach out to us. Megan is an excellent resource to you folks in that nature.
Marlena, let me just jump in for a sec before we go on to, what was the, I had an issue. God, if I can think about it, or if I think of, oh, here it is. Nicholas and Trisha had a question about emails getting switched when the upload overrides them.
Okay, so that's a great question. Here, I don't think we need to go back in terms of the view of the slide, but so this is a great question. So for those of you who are part of the OSC family, bucket one, your employees get paid by OSC. You don't have to go back, it's fine. There's nothing to show anyway. Your employees get paid by OSC, all right? You have the N or the C followed by 8 numeric digits, you are OSC bucket. We utilize 2 files, and this is a great point, okay? The first file we receive from OSC on the 1st of every month. It comes to our ITS team on the 1st of every month, like clockwork, boom, on the 1st. That file lets us know who our active employees are, okay? That gives us the N numbers, the first name, last name of the employees, okay? And it lets us know who the new hires are. And I won't spend too much time on that, but that information gets uploaded into the system. The OSC file does not have email addresses. There's 2 files that get refreshed every single month, okay? Now, the file that we learned is a problem is the email file, okay? But we kind of tweaked how we're using that. Initially, we have a file, it's basically an Active Directory file. So you know how we all log into our system in the morning? So whatever email address is attached to how we log into the morning, that's the email address that our ITS team had access to. What we learned is that for employees who have transferred from one OSC agency to another, a lot of times the issue was that former agency did not open up an ITSM ticket and did not deprovision or decommission that email address. So that was the active email address that was still being used. And let's say, and the system doesn't know. So there could be 3 to 4 rows in the email. It could be the same person, and they could have transferred 4 times, to give you an example. And whatever that top email address is, whether it's the right one or the wrong one, once again, it's all, it's coding, it's ones and zeros, it's not, doesn't know, that was the email address that was being put up. The problem, and the unfortunate problem, was that for a lot of you who were updating the email addresses, okay, the issue was that information was overridden when our ITS team would refresh that file on a monthly basis. And we stopped doing that. We were like, nope, we heard you folks loud and clear. We were unaware that that was happening. We had no idea that file that we were utilizing, as any data file, needed some tweaks to it, okay? So what we do is if you go in there today, let's say, and you update all of the email addresses and you say, these are all of my email addresses, when we update the file again, we leave it alone. We don't touch any email address that's existing in the profile. The only email addresses that we add are for employees whose email address is blank, okay? So that was our solution to kind of mitigate that situation where you're entering, you as our agency user, are entering and correcting a bad email address. We're saving that data. We don't touch it. But the thing is, with that situation is that if your employee leaves or their email address changes for whatever reason, you'll have to go in there and you'll have to change the email address because it's kind of an all or nothing file, right? We either update everybody or we only update the blanks. So right now we're only updating the blanks to ensure that whatever you entered in, and I think we started this process 2 months ago, stays put, all right? Hopefully that answers your question.
Marlena, there's one more, and I think I remember how we decided this. Lauren asks if an employee is overdue for training. They respond to the emails, so they go in and they see in January 25, oh my gosh, I didn't get my training done last year in 2024. So they go in and they do it. They get the credit for the 2024, but then they need to complete the training again in 2025. I think we decided yes, right?
So training is a yearly requirement, right? Like we're not going to say, oh, this person was late and, so even though you didn't take 2024 and you now took it in 2025, you're good for 2025 because that training didn't really count for 2025, right? It was because you were overdue for 2024. So the answer to that is it depends, right? So generally you're going to have to take 2 trainings in that year, right? So we like to say, and I've been putting together a communication, a don't fall behind for this campaign specifically for this reason, right? Because our sentiment is that by now, and we understand there's still a lot of employees that don't realize this is a yearly training requirement, you have a full calendar year to get trained. We understand life happens, you have a leave of absence, you have an unexpected surgery, you have an unexpected death in the family. We understand all of those situations, right? But you have a full calendar year. Generally, whatever comes up in life can be handled within that calendar year, okay? So thinking about the 2025 calendar year, you've got 12 months to have, you as an employee be trained, right? So we want to ensure, and we don't want to do things in the system that allow someone to not be trained for 2 years, as an example, right? So even though you were overdue in 2024 and you completed in 2025, you're still due to take something in 2025. It doesn't alleviate, that responsibility. Cheryl, if someone is out on leave and returns, are they a new hire? It depends. That depends. And I'm sure Megan's getting restless because I can't spend too much time on SETA. I was warned. So here's the deal. Let's say, and this really impacts our academics and our adjuncts and all of our SUNY CUNY family. So this is what happens in this case. Let's say you have someone that's on the payroll in February and they leave. Okay, but they didn't take training. They didn't take training in February. They didn't take training when they were supposed to. Okay, and then they come back in August or September. Okay, in that case they're a new hire, right? They didn't take training. We're going to treat them as a new hire and we're going to give them a 90-day due date. They got to take training in 90 days. Okay, so same example, different situation. The person was an existing employee and they leave in February, but they took training. They took training. They're good to go for 2024, and they come back tomorrow. We maintain that training record in SETA. We continue to keep that completion date. So if they were trained and there's a completion date, when they're marked inactive in the system and when they come back for the 2024 calendar year, they're not required to take training. That original 2024 training requirement satisfies the 2024 calendar year. Now it gets a little tricky when people come on and off in overlapping calendar years. So I was in 2024 and now I came back in 2025. Generally in those situations, they're treated as a new hire because once again, training is a requirement every single year, right? So if you didn't do anything in 2024 and you're a new hire again in 2025, 90-day due date. So Tricia, I can as long as I have email addresses. So we're encouraging everybody to put email addresses in the system.
Do you want me to get started, Marlena?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
I'll let you take over the chat with Megan, and I will get started with you guys on financial disclosure statements and give you a brief overview of the key aspects of this requirement and who it applies to. There are approximately 30,000 state officers and employees who are designated as financial disclosure statement filers. They are groups of people, right? Policymakers designated by an agency, and that can include unpaid per diem members of boards, councils, or commissions. I will say that if you feel like a designation as a policymaker is incorrect, that is definitely an issue that we suggest to employees who are taking CETC training that they should meet with their ethics officer and address that issue if they felt their designation was wrong. The other group is threshold filers, and these are employees who exceed an income threshold. Currently, that number is 111,897 for the income threshold. So that is greater than or the CSEA salary grade 24. So that began on April 1st of 2024. That is the number for threshold filers. The 4 statewide elected officials, legislators, and candidates for offices are also required to file, and some political party chairs are also required to file as defined in Public Officers Law 73. So you might be wondering why some employees have to file a financial disclosure statement, and it's pretty easy. The financial disclosure statement is a publicly available record containing financial and professional information about the financial disclosure statement filer and the filer's spouse or domestic partner. So I will note here, reporting for domestic partner has been changed. It changed the filing requirements from the 2022 legislation. And the purpose is really to provide transparency for those in public service and, of course, to prevent conflicts of interest between a person's public duties and their private financial interests and affiliations. And so when we think of what kinds of things must be disclosed on these financial disclosure statement filers, it's basically all the ways that we are connected financially. So it provides that transparency regarding how your connections with the private sector may create those conflicts of interest with your public service. So the statement is going to ask you about offices or any positions of authority held in a business entity or organization, a political party or political organization. It's going to ask about ownership or professional affiliation with any business entity. It's going to ask about ownership and income from financial interests, investments, securities, real property, and other assets. It's also going to ask about debts and liens and mortgages and any other financial obligations like certain gifts, honoraria, you'll hear more about that later, and other payments as well. So understand that this is not an exhaustive list of disclosed information. And certainly there's more to be said about financial disclosure statements. For example, when you have to file, that certainly depends on your filing status. So for those subject to the filing requirement, most have an annual filing due date of May 15th. This is usually also the deadline if you want to request a filing extension. However, November 15th is the due date and extension request date if you're a professor at SUNY or CUNY. And then when you file, or when you first become a financial disclosure statement filer, you have 30 days to file for the previous year. And because financial disclosure statements are public documents, sometimes this raises privacy concerns, so we want to address some of those. Certainly an FDS filer can make a request to redact specific information from the FDS copy made publicly available. You can also seek a limited exemption for some questions regarding a spouse or domestic partner or minor child. You can get an extension for filing on the basis of justifiable cause or undue hardship. That request must be made by the filing deadline. And threshold filers, they can request an exemption. I will say policymakers may not. And so I will also say that these requests are granted under limited circumstances. I know I already said that once, but it's important to repeat. We understand that this financial disclosure statement is an important legal obligation, so there's going to be consequences if you don't file. We're going to bring them up now because certifications containing the name, title, home address, and email address of each individual designated as an FDS filer, certainly instructions on how to navigate the COLIG FDS filing system for both FDS filers and ethics officer is available on our website, but you should know that that's available. There are also these are basically actions required by the ethics officer. Amended certifications within 30 days of the date. So an individual becomes when an individual becomes either a policymaker or a threshold filer, or an FDS filer leaves state service and has a change in job that results in the individual no longer being either a policymaker or a threshold filer. And then in terms of when a new filer account is created, the FDS online filing system, an auto-generated email is going to alert filers to their mandatory training obligations. So it will notify individuals. We urge you to notify individuals of their requirement to file and to participate in mandatory ethics training prior to creating a profile. And really important to just kind of get that message out as to why they have to take training and why they have to do the things that they do. We're going to jump into outside activities. I think that's still me. I think I can talk to you guys about outside activities. Anyone opposed to that, or do I pass it on? It's me? Nice. It is me, so that's great. I'm going to talk to you guys about outside activities. Let's define it first. An outside activity is any activity or obligation that is unrelated to your state employment. So when you talk to your employees about outside activities, make sure that they understand that they cannot, these outside activities cannot occur during your regular work hours, use state resources, or conflict with your state job. So the general rule about participating in outside employment or similar activities is to look at it from both Public Officers Law 73 and 74. It can't violate the restrictions in 73, but it also can't give that appearance of conflict of interest, or it can't give that appearance of benefit or preferential treatment under the Code of Ethics and Public Officers Law 74. With regards to that, your agency may have additional policies that address outside activities, and they certainly can be more restrictive than what we talk about here in Public Officers Law, and it is your obligation to make your employees aware of these policies. There's no way for us to be able to have a generalized training and include every agency's individual agency policies. So make sure your employees are aware of your own individual policies, but let's take a look at some of the considerations that we think about in terms of who approves your outside activity. It certainly depends on what it is and how much that person is expecting to earn. So if the activity will earn or expects to earn greater than the threshold amounts you see on the slide here, annual compensation between $1,000 and $5,000 requires agency approval. Annual compensation greater than $5,000 is going to require agency approval, and for that person to complete the commission outside activity approval form and submit it to the commission for final approval. We do say that agency approval usually happens through the ethics officer or a designee, but for annual compensation greater than $5,000, it will require them to submit the commission for final approval. there are going to be some specific kinds of activity that should prompt your employees to seek guidance and to, for you as well, seek guidance, talk to your ethics officer, or even giving the attorney of the day a call. These are the types of activities that should prompt you to seek guidance. If you're involved in outside activities, public office, becoming a corporate officer or director, getting involved in different business ventures, public employment, or becoming a non-for-profit director, again, this is an area where you're going to want to seek guidance and make sure that your outside activities don't have or could potentially demonstrate a violation of conflicts of interest. So the next step is to understand again what actions are required by the ethics officer. It is important for you to review outside activity requests in accordance with the regulations that we've provided, assist your employees who need colleague approval in getting those submissions in. And certainly to educate all your employees, regardless of their status, regardless of their title or rank, on how to avoid the potential conflicts of interest that arise from participating in outside activities. We're going to move on to honorarium. And as I mentioned, that is another topic that might be of big interest to you guys. So I am going to pass it on to Michael.
Thanks. Yeah, so talking about honoraria and things like that, what we're really looking at here are some of the specific circumstances that some of your employees might run into where you're going to need to be reviewing things with them, different situations like that. So for honoraria, essentially what we're looking at is any type of payment for or another form of compensation even offered in exchange for a professional service or activity that an employee is doing. So it could be giving a speech, could be writing an article, or serving on a panel at a seminar or a conference. But the key here is that it's not part of their normal official duties. So there is that separation where that payment is coming from another source, essentially. So we have to keep that that clean separation. Now, these honoraria can include expenses incurred for travel, lodging, meals related to the service that's being performed. So all we need to know here as the ethics officer is that you have to review and render a determination for those employee requests for honorarium approvals in accordance with those regulations. You have to be ensuring that the agency has an up-to-date internal records retention policy because those honoraria are, the approvals rather, are required to be retained for 3 years. And you also have to be able to educate agency personnel on those requirements and the restrictions that are contained within the honoraria regulations. The next area we'll talk about is kind of similar, but it is those third-party travel payments. So essentially what's happening here is those reimbursements from a third party for activities that are part of or related to a state job, so travel related to that, are generally allowed. They have to be requested in writing and approved in advance by you, the ethics officer. Now, what you need to be aware of here is, again, you have to be rendering and reviewing these determinations on if these requests can be accepted. There are, some restrictions on what can be accepted, so you need to be brushed up on those, and then also be ensuring that the agency again has that 3-year records retention for those approvals for these third-party payments. And also be able to educate your personnel and employees on the requirements and restrictions in the official activity expense payment regulations. Now, the third related.
Michael.
Oh yeah, sure.
Hey, sorry, everyone. I'm jumping in here and there. And I'm going to mention this only because we get a lot of questions in our own trainings when we have SUNY and CUNY professors on. We tell them that they are exempt from the approval process, but that they still need to make sure that they are submitting that they received these honoraria. So make sure if anyone's here from one from a CUNY or SUNY institution, that those folks understand that they don't have to jump through the hoops, but that they need to be submitting those to you all. All right.
All right, yeah, so for gifts, essentially what we're looking at here, it's governed under Part 933 of the New York Codes, Rules, and Regulations. And these cover the receipt and acceptance of all sorts of things, such as money, meals, entertainment. It could be travel, it could be lodging, things like that, among other things. And there are also exclusions based on the simple definition of the gift being anything greater than $15. So some of the things that would be generally excluded, as long as it's not creating the appearance of a conflict of interest, would be the receipt of awards or plaques in recognition of someone's public service, receiving an honorary degree, getting promotional items like that don't have any resale value, so things from a conference like branded pens, things like that. Widely available discounts, so if it's available to the general public or all state employees, or at least a certain group of state employees that's kind of large enough to be able to determine that it's not intended to influence that group. Those are the types of things that would be generally allowed as well. Gifts from someone that you have a demonstrated family or a friendship relationship with. Contributions that are reportable under election law, meals and beverages that are provided to people who participate in professional or educational programs, any food or beverage that's worth $15 or less, because again, that $15 or less would not be considered a gift, and then also local travel payments for tours related to someone's state job. Now, there are, in addition to items that are excluded, there are attendance to events and participation in those events that might also be excluded. We have informational events, and for informational events, it's essentially if someone is going to be a speaker at an event that's hosted by a government entity or a higher learning institution within the state who's paying those expenses or being reimbursing that individual, then they can accept the travel, food, and lodging. And for charitable events and political events, they're kind of similar. The complimentary attendance, food, and beverages can be accepted as long as the primary purpose of that event is to provide financial support to an organization that is either registered as a bona fide charity or is registered as a bona fide political organization or a candidate for statewide office. There is one other exclusion for events, and it's for when certain types of events don't really fit neatly into those other categories. There are some criteria that would need to be met for a different type of event to be allowable. So for these widely attended events, you can see the first three criteria there: inform the ethics officer. So this is where you come in figuring out if that widely attended event is going to be allowable or not. And then complimentary admission must be offered by the sponsor of the event, and then we also have to require 25 individuals who are not from that agency are also attending or in good faith invited to attend. So those are kind of intended to prevent an interested source from creating an event specifically to target that individual employee or your agency as a whole. The last two there have to do with the official duties or position of that individual. So again, as the ethics officer, you need to be getting advance warning on these types of situations, because it's on you to be able to vet that event and make sure that it meets these criteria before that person can attend. Now, I mentioned an interested source. It's probably a good time to kind of define that a little bit more clearly. So an interested source is essentially a person or an entity that has a vested interest in influencing either an individual who works at your agency or your agency as a whole. So this could be someone who is regulated by or appears before your agency. Maybe they have contracts with, or they're seeking contracts with that individual or your agency. They could be a registered lobbyist, a client of a lobbyist, or a spouse or minor child of such a lobbyist who lobbies your agency. Maybe they're involved in ongoing litigation that's adverse to an employee or your agency, or they've received or applied for funds in the previous year from your agency. Or they could just be attempting to influence an employee or your agency in an official action. So basically, a gift or anything of value cannot be accepted from an entity or a person who would meet one of these aspects of this definition. So that kind of gets us to the overview of your requirements in this area of things of value. So you need to educate all staff on the requirements and prohibitions in public officers law and the gift regulations. And again, this is an area where your agency policy can have additional restrictions that you're going to need to be responsible for making sure that's that all of your staff are informed of. And also you want to make sure that they're aware of the requirement to provide you with that prior written notification of their intent to attend a widely attended event, because again, you'll have to vet that before they can attend. And also advise your staff on questions and issues that might arise regarding the application of these gift regulations to specific situations. So that brings us to the end of our presentation here of kind of an explanation of some of these aspects, again, that come up that we talk about in our live CETC training. Our information for the training team, we have our direct line there. One of the training associates that you met today will answer usually. At least one of us is in the office on pretty much all days. And then we also have our email, which is colleagueeducation@ethics.ny.gov, and that is monitored by all 5 of us in different capacities. And then there's tons of information that you can avail yourself to on our website, ethics.ny.gov. And I see Megan's camera is back on. Megan, did you have anything to add?
Just real quick to everyone, thank you for coming. We always love to have these. We're hoping to have more. And also, we're thinking, we haven't scheduled anything yet, but we're probably going to have another forum in the near future just on the training application again, because there's so many questions and things get put in there that are new and everything. So stay tuned and send us your questions after if you have more. Thank you guys.
All right, and I'll put up our social media. Anyone can let me know in the chat area if you need me to switch back to the previous slide if you're trying to copy any of that information down. But you can use the QR codes to follow our social media.